Picture this. You inherit 47 acres of top-notch Montana land from your grandfather, including mineral rights and a 100-year-old access road. The scent of pine resin still lingers on the survey markers when I find out HOA President Brenda has constructed a whole neighborhood. 36 upscale houses directly on my land, insisting she acquired it through some county tax auction. The twist, she's pulling in $400 monthly HOA dues from each resident while their SUVs rumble across my gravel path every day. When I presented her with the deed, she grinned, sized me up like I'd emerged from beneath a boulder, and remarked, "Look, sweetie, perhaps you ought to hire a proper attorney rather than some bargain basement defender you scrounged up on Craigslist." The click of her fake nails dismissing me still rings in my mind. What would you do if some busybody actually swiped your land and erected fancy estates on it? And where are you tuning in from? I bet your HOA tales can't beat this one. My name's Jake Mitchell, and prior to this ordeal kicking off, I was simply a 34-year-old electrician scraping by week to week in Billings. Then Grandpa Henry died, bequeathing me his 47-acre parcel near Whitefish, along with logging rights, mineral rights, and a pristine mountain brook that hums like nature's personal sound soother. The property had stayed in our family since 1923. Grandpa always told me, "Jake, this soil's worth more than any treasure, but only if you're clever enough to keep it." I aimed to construct a simple cabin, perhaps launch that electrical contracting venture I'd fantasized about. The dawn breeze there carries the aroma of liberty. Evergreen needles blended with that sharp Montana chill that invigorates your lungs in the finest way. But here's where the plot thickens. The estate included one odd element, a private gravel lane that terminated at the county road. Grandpa had kept it up for years, and by law, it belonged to me. Imagine it as a 200-yard entrance path broad enough for 2 pickups. Enter Brenda Kowalski. Brenda wasn't your average HOA leader. She was the sort who'd gauge your lawn with a tape measure and slap you with a penalty for the incorrect hue of mailbox. Envision a lady who sported pearls to the supermarket and piloted a white Escalade with custom plates spelling Hopress. Her tone had that specific shrillness that could shatter crystal. You get the picture. 3 months following Grandpa's burial, I chose to inspect the land for the first time as its rightful holder. That's when I uncovered Brenda's mini kingdom, Whitefish Meadows, a secured enclave of 36 matching tan residences, each valued around $400,000. The project stretched over what I recognized as my territory, equipped with road markers, pavements, and an elaborate stone gateway boasting bronze script. But hold on, it improves. Every occupant was utilizing my exclusive road as their main entry point. I tallied 72 cars that morning, wheels crunching over the stones Grandpa had placed himself. The noise resembled claws scraping a blackboard. When I rapped on Brenda's door, a huge colonial with pillars more suited to Georgia than Montana, she answered in a robe that likely cost more than my pickup. "May I assist you?" she inquired, scrutinizing my work boots as if I'd dragged in filth. I presented myself, outlined the issue courteously, and displayed Grandpa's deed. Her reply, a cackle like a hyena spotting new carrion. "Oh, darling," she said, "I purchased this land legitimately at a county tax auction 3 years back. Your grandfather clearly skipped his taxes. The issue? I possessed evidence that Grandpa's taxes were paid up through 2023. Every invoice, every cleared check, sorted in a folder with his precise script. Look, sweetie," Brenda went on, "perhaps you ought to hire a proper attorney rather than some bargain basement defender you scrounged up on Craigslist. This project is entirely lawful, and we have residents shelling out $400 monthly HOA dues for the honor of residing here. You believe we'll just dismantle and depart because some wireman appears with ancient documents? That's when she unleashed the true shocker. Moreover, even if you manage to demonstrate ownership, which you won't, we've established adverse possession. Research it, buckaroo." The encounter concluded with her banging the door so forcefully that her ornamental garland tumbled to the stoop. I lingered there, hearing the far-off drone of AC units and automated irrigators, all fueled by power lines I'd assisted in setting up for the county. Heading back to my worn-out Ford, I spotted something Brenda had ignored in her conceit. Every residence in Whitefish Meadows relied on that private lane for entry. There was absolutely no alternative route into or out of her tiny realm. That's when the ideas began churning. 2 days on, I engaged Cassandra Webb, a real estate lawyer focused on boundary conflicts. Her workspace reeked of bound legal tomes and robust brew, the sort of spot that shouted, "I triumph in disputes." Within 48 hours, she'd verified what I suspected. The land was rightfully mine, and Brenda's tax auction was pure invention. "Here's the intriguing bit," Cassandra elaborated, laying out county papers over her wooden desk. "No tax auction ever occurred. Your grandfather's payments are all recorded. Miss Kowalski somehow persuaded a dishonest county official to fabricate auction papers. This isn't mere encroachment. It's outright criminal deceit." Equipped with this intel, I strode back to Brenda's oversized manor. This time, she opened the door attired in what seemed like golf club attire. White capris, pink-collared top, and sufficient bling to finance a minor nation's military. "Oh, you again," she exhaled, inspecting her polished nails. I believed I'd been explicit. I passed her a notarized missive from Cassandra detailing our stance. Brenda didn't bother unfolding it. Instead, she ripped it apart, allowing the fragments to drift to her doormat, and declared, "You know what? If you want to engage in games, let's engage." That afternoon, each homeowner in Whitefish Meadows got an urgent HOA alert portraying me as a bitter intruder trying to intimidate the neighborhood with baseless claims. The alert instructed folks to contact authorities right away if they spotted me on HOA grounds. But Brenda's initial major blunder was her next move. She erected a security barrier at the start of my private lane. Not at her project's entrance, but at the county road intersection where my land commenced. A large black metal beast with points atop and a code entry setup. The steel echo when it locked resembled a jail cell ceiling. Here's what Brenda failed to grasp. By barricading my lane, she essentially conceded it wasn't open to the public. You can't barricade communal land, but personal land? That's another matter. I phoned Cassandra at once. Amid her chuckles, she uttered, "Jake, she's just delivered our key evidence. Placing a barrier on another's private lane is felonious intrusion with asset harm. We can insist on prompt dismantling and bill her for each day it stays." The following morning, I drove to the barrier with my digital camera. Recall, this was prior to smartphones capturing everything. Serial codes, set-up firm emblems, even the cement bases they'd installed sans approvals. The dawn dew rendered each image sharp, seizing every vital detail for litigation. But as I snapped photos, something unforeseen occurred. A young mom wheeling a baby carriage came near from within the project. Sarah Smith, as I'd soon discover, resided in Unit 23 with her spouse David and toddler daughter Emma. "Pardon me," she murmured, her tone just above a hush. "Are you the guy Brenda cautioned us about?" I clarified my identity and purpose. Sarah's look changed from doubt to dismay as the facts registered. "You mean we don't truly own our property?" "We shelled out $420,000 for our home." "I'm afraid so," I responded. "Legally, you're all intruding on my family's estate." Sarah's complexion blanched. "We poured our whole nest egg into the deposit. David juggles 2 gigs to cover the loan. If this project is unlawful..." That exchange lingered with me through the night. These weren't affluent speculators. They were everyday households who'd been duped as severely as I had. The distinction: they'd invested their life funds into dwellings erected on pilfered ground. The next day, Brenda ramped up once more. She enlisted Pine Security, a private outfit that posted sentries at the barrier around the clock. These weren't rent-a-cops. They were former soldiers in combat outfits who appeared shipped from a battlefield. The odor of their fuel generator, blending with tobacco fumes, formed a mechanical haze that draped the entry like a poisonous mist. When I neared to record this fresh twist, the lead sentry, a hulking figure named Chuck, advanced with his palm on what seemed like mace. "Private grounds, sir." "You must depart." "This is my private grounds," I countered, displaying the deed. Chuck's retort, "I don't give a damn what that sheet claims. The lady compensates me to bar troublemakers, and you fit the bill." And that night, I got a notarized letter from Kowalski and Associates Legal Services. Evidently, Brenda's relative was a paralegal pretending to practice law. The letter ordered me to halt all pestering of Whitefish Meadows inhabitants and warned of a protective order if I persisted in invading HOA territory. But here's the splendid aspect. By deploying armed watchmen and issuing legal warnings, Brenda had elevated this from a land quarrel to something far grander. She was on the verge of discovering why you never trap an electrician who understands precisely which cables to sever. Brenda's protection show endured precisely 1 week before I uncovered her weak spot, and it was concealed in open view at the county records office. While poring over land files, I unearthed something marvelous. Whitefish Meadows wasn't merely constructed on swiped land. It was erected without valid permits, no ecological assessment, no waste system clearance, and crucially, for someone like me, no electrical safety certifications. Every dwelling in that project was essentially doomed real estate in waiting. "This is a treasure trove," Cassandra exclaimed, nearly leaping from her seat. "We can compel instant evacuations based on safety breaches alone." But before I could lodge grievances with the county, Brenda attacked again, this time aiming at my job. I showed up for a standard wiring task on Tuesday morning to discover my customer, Mrs. Patterson, standing by with an anxious look and a printout clutched tight. The sheet carried the whiff of new ink and trouble. "Jake," she said regretfully, "I got this email regarding you yesterday." "I'm sorry, but I can't chance employing an electrician amid legal woes." The message, dispatched from concerned citizen BrendaOgmail.com to every key employer in Whitefish, depicted me as a hostile intruder, bothering harmless families, and probed for encroachment. It listed my trade permit number, my private mobile, and a blurry snapshot of me by the barrier, clearly snapped covertly. Within 48 hours, I'd forfeited 3 big deals totaling $15,000. The quiet of my silent phone grew overwhelming, but Brenda had committed a fatal error. She documented her smear effort in text, packed with lies and my professional details. In Montana, that's classic commercial slander with measurable harm. I sent it all to Cassandra, who replied with an emoticon I didn't realize attorneys could employ. "Jake, she's just gifted us a foolproof civil action. Commercial slander in Montana includes mandatory reparations plus legal costs. She's funding her own downfall." That afternoon, I chose to see Sarah Smith once more, the young mom I'd encountered at the barrier. This time, I carried proof. Duplicates of authentic land logs, images of unauthorized building, and a roster of regulation breaches I'd spotted as a certified electrician. Sarah opened the door, appearing drained, her toddler gripping her leg. The home behind her was stunning. Wooden floors, stone surfaces, the type of spot young couples aspire to possess. "I've been digging into what you mentioned," she whispered. "David figures I'm nuts, but things aren't adding up. Brenda refuses to display the initial buy papers, and our title insurer keeps dodging us." I arranged the county files on her dining surface. "Sarah, I'm sorry to verify your deepest concerns, but every home here is built on land that's mine by right. Beyond that, none of these places cleared proper checks." She gestured to a socket by her basin. "That wiring's always seemed off. The lights dim sometimes with the dishwasher on." I retrieved my voltage checker. Habits persist. Indeed, the socket was connected incorrectly, posing a hazardous short risk. "Sarah, this goes beyond ownership now. It's about security. Your child could get badly injured." That's when Sarah revealed her own surprise. "Jake, there's another thing. Brenda's been demanding extra special levies from all of us. $200 monthly for legal protection funds. She claims we're all facing suits from a madman and must unite. Do the calculation. 36 houses x $200 per month equals $7,200 in additional revenue." Brenda was lining her pockets while labeling me the bad guy. She wasn't merely taking land. She was operating an extortion scheme. "There's additional," Sarah added. "Last week, she summoned a required HOA gathering. Skip it and face a $500 penalty. She declared fresh regulations. No chatting with outsiders. No debating community legal matters externally, and anyone seen associating with the foe, her term, would encounter swift ousting processes. The aroma of Sarah's midday brew couldn't conceal the odor of dread in that room. This had evolved beyond property. Brenda had fostered an atmosphere of coercion that any autocrat would envy. That night, I got a surprise call from Chuck the sentry. "Hey, dude," he said, his voice oddly subdued. "I bailed on that nutty woman. She's not compensating us anyhow, 3 weeks overdue on wages. But you should hear this. She's set to press criminal intrusion charges against you this Friday. Claims she's got pics and testimonies showing you've been trailing folks." "What sort of pics?" "The kind that aren't quite truthful, if you catch my drift." Chuck's heads up provided exactly what I required. 48 hours to ready my own twist for Brenda's little setup. Time to demonstrate what occurs when you tangle with someone who can overhaul a whole network from scratch. Friday dawn came with the sort of highland frost that renders your exhales visible and your determination razor sharp. I knew Brenda was plotting her trap, so I opted to grant her precisely what she desired, with a couple of tweaks she hadn't anticipated. At 7:30 a.m., I stationed my truck at the county road crossing right beyond the barrier to my private lane. I toted my mapping gear, my camera, and most vitally, Grandpa's original boundary posts, the ones with his letters etched deep into aged timber that still bore a faint creosote whiff. In moments, Brenda materialized like a scavenger eyeing new prey. She'd brought reinforcements, 2 locals, her cousin the paralegal, and a guy with a pricey camera who seemed allergic to soil. "There he is," Brenda proclaimed loudly enough to rouse the departed. "All of you, keep distance. He might be hazardous." I kept on plotting boundary lines, driving posts into the icy soil. Each steel strike reverberated off the nearby evergreens like a timer ticking down. "Pardon me, sir," the cameraman shouted. "I'm from the Whitefish Gazette. Care to address claims that you've been bothering dwellers of this serene enclave?" Here's where Brenda's scheme began fraying. She'd summoned an actual reporter to record her civilian detention of a perilous intruder. Except I wasn't intruding, and I held papers confirming it. I gave the journalist copies of my land title, the bogus auction files, and shots of unapproved building. "I'm Jake Mitchell, rightful holder of this estate. These folks erected 36 homes on ground my family's owned since 1923. The journalist's demeanor switched from indifferent to intrigued. "You're claiming this whole project is unlawful?" "Not merely unlawful, perilous. As a qualified electrician, I've pinpointed several code infractions that endanger occupants." That's when Brenda committed her second error of the day. Rather than retreating, she amplified her deceptions. "Ignore him," she screeched. "He's a resentful vagrant attempting to pilfer our residences. We possess legal papers verifying—" "Display them," I cut in steadily. "Quiet. The type of quiet that descends in a courtroom when the accused sees their counsel has fled." I don't need to verify anything to you," Brenda stammered. The reporter, named Marcus Webb, no kin to my lawyer, drew out his notepad. "Miss Kowalski, can you supply proof of your land acquisition?" That's private HOA data. But here's where my actual strategy activated. While Brenda performed for the lens, I'd been methodically recording something she'd missed. Her barrier setup had harmed county service conduits. The sharp tang of ruined copper lines mingled with the morning evergreens, as I revealed to Marcus where Brenda's workers had sliced through buried phone wires. "Observe these cut cables? That's vandalism of county assets. A serious crime in Montana." Marcus was scribbling madly when Sarah Smith showed up, rolling her carriage and appearing resolute despite her clear jitters. "Pardon me," she addressed the reporter. "I reside here, and I believe folks should learn the truth." Brenda's complexion turned violet. "Sarah, I prohibit you from speaking to these individuals. You're breaching HOA rules." "With respect, Brenda," Sarah shot back with unexpected firmness. "I've examined those rules. They're not enforceable since this HOA was never duly filed with the state." The reporter's writing was frantic. "Miss Smith, are you stating the HOA functions illegally?" "I'm stating we've paid over $400,000 for homes we don't rightfully own on land owned by Mr. Mitchell, overseen by an HOA that lacks legal standing. Meanwhile, Brenda's been gathering thousands in monthly charges for non-existent services." That's when David Smith stepped out from Unit 23, holding a folder that reeked of new copies and justified fury. "I'm a bookkeeper," he declared to the assembling group. "Last night, my wife and I did some sleuthing. Brenda, you've amassed over $180,000 in HOA dues and extra levies in the last year." "Where's that cash?" Brenda's lips flapped like a stranded trout. "Those resources are handled correctly per HOA protocols." "What protocols?" David pressed. "Produce the financial plan. Produce the account ledgers. Produce any records of where our funds vanished." The cameraman was thrilled, snapping Brenda's collapse in vivid detail. But the true revelation arrived when Marcus posed the query that altered all. "Miss Kowalski, If this project is valid, why haven't you lodged a countersuit against Mr. Mitchell? Utter hush. Even the wildlife appeared to pause because here's what Brenda couldn't admit. Initiating a suit would demand she submit files she lacked, establish ownership she couldn't, and undergo scrutiny that would unveil her full scam. She was cornered, and all knew it. "This discussion is finished," Brenda yelled, charging toward her Escalade. "You'll hear from my attorneys." As her wheels screeched on the pavement, I grasped something wonderful. Brenda had just supplied Marcus Webb with ample content for a lead story that would sink her further than any legal action could. The Whitefish Gazette piece landed on newsstands Wednesday morning with a title that made my brew taste triumphant. "Local HOA head charged with huge land scam." But the genuine upheaval hit Thursday afternoon when Marcus Webb rang with details that shifted everything. "Jake, you better take a seat," he said, his tone buzzing with thrill. "I've delved further into Brenda's history, and what I've uncovered is, well, it's larger than we imagined. I was overhauling a connection panel at my place when he called, and the pungent odor of wiring adhesive couldn't hide the suspense in the atmosphere. What did you uncover? Brenda Kowalski isn't just managing one bogus HOA. She's executed this con in 3 separate counties. Whitefish Meadows is her 3rd phony project in 5 years. The tool dropped from my grip, clanging on the hard floor with a metallic chime that resounded like an alarm. "There's additional," Marcus went on. "Recall how she alleged your grandfather neglected his taxes? I located the county official who supposedly handled the tax auction. His name's Dennis Kowalski, Brenda's brother-in-law. Jesus, it improves. Dennis has been accepting kickbacks to forge fake tax auction papers, then dividing the gains with Brenda when she builds on the taken land. They've swiped over 300 acres and cheated hundreds of households out of millions. But here's where the tale veered in a direction I never anticipated. That afternoon, I had an unforeseen guest, FBI Special Agent Lisa Martinez, bearing a badge that shone like buffed metal and inquiries that carried the weight of grave federal accusations. "Mr. Mitchell," she stated, easing into my dining chair with the poise of someone who'd handled this countless times. "We've been probing the Kowalski Group for postal fraud, electronic fraud, and plotting real estate deceit. Your situation is the key element we required." The coffee brewer bubbled behind as Agent Martinez detailed how Brenda's scheme extended well past Montana. She's linked to a broader web that preys on inherited countryside estates throughout the mountain states. They spot newly passed landowners, fake tax files, then construct projects before kin realize what's transpired. "How many folks are entangled?" "At least a dozen accomplices over 4 states. But here's what sets your case apart, Mr. Mitchell. You resisted. Most targets don't spot the scam until it's too late to reclaim their estate." Agent Martinez opened a briefcase that smelled like leather and contained more documentation than I'd seen outside a law library. Bank records, wire transfer receipts, recorded phone conversations between Brenda and Dennis, evidence of a criminal enterprise that had been operating for over a decade. "The Bureau wants to offer you a deal," she continued. "Cooperate with our investigation, wear a recording device during interactions with Ms. Kowalski, and we'll fast-track the return of your property while pursuing federal charges against the entire network." But the real revelation came when she showed me a list of Brenda's other victims. A Vietnam veteran in Colorado who lost his family ranch. A single mother in Wyoming whose inherited farmland was turned into a golf course. An elderly couple in Idaho whose mineral rights were stolen along with their property. "Mr. Mitchell, this isn't just about your 47 acres anymore. This is about stopping a criminal organization that's destroyed dozens of families and stolen millions in property." The weight of that responsibility settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. This wasn't just personal revenge anymore. This was about justice for people who didn't have the resources or knowledge to fight back. "What do you need me to do?" Agent Martinez smiled. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was part of something bigger than my own anger. "We need you to do exactly what you've been doing, Mr. Mitchell. Keep pushing. Keep documenting. Keep making Brenda Kowalski think she's smarter than everyone else. And then we take down the whole damn operation." Agent Martinez's FBI recording device looked like a fancy pen, but felt like carrying a live grenade. The weight of federal justice mixed with the crisp mountain air as I assembled my unlikely alliance in Cassandra's law office, a space that now smelled like determination and strong coffee instead of just leather books. "Gentlemen and ladies," Cassandra announced, spreading blueprints across her conference table. "We're not just fighting for Jake's property anymore. We're dismantling a criminal enterprise." GM, my team read like something out of a heist movie. Sarah Smith, the accountant's wife-turned-amateur detective. David Smith, whose spreadsheet skills would make the IRS weep with joy. Marcus Webb, the journalist with a nose for corruption. And Agent Martinez, who could probably arrest someone just by looking at them sternly. "Here's what we know." Agent Martinez began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd taken down bigger fish than Brenda Kowalski. The Kowalski network operates on a predictable pattern. Identify target property, forge tax documents, build quickly, then disappear with the profits before anyone notices. David pulled out a laptop that hummed like a contented cat. "I've been analyzing Brenda's financial records, the ones Sarah photographed during HOA meetings. She's collected $847,000 in fees and assessments over 18 months, but only spent $23,000 on actual community services." "Where'd the rest go?" I asked. "Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands funneled through shell companies registered in Delaware." David's fingers danced across the keyboard. "Classic money laundering operation disguised as HOA management. In Montana, HOA funds must be held in bonded accounts with detailed quarterly reporting to state regulators. Diverting those funds to personal accounts is embezzlement, a felony carrying up to 10 years in prison. Always demand to see HO financial records. Legitimate associations have nothing to hide." Sarah spread out photographs that captured every detail of the development like a crime scene investigation. "I've documented 17 building code violations, including improper foundation work that could cause structural collapse during our next major earthquake." "Earthquake?" I asked. "We're sitting on an active fault line," she replied matter-of-factly. "Brenda's contractors skipped the geological survey required for developments over 25 units. If we get a 5.0 tremor, half these houses could literally slide down the mountain." Marcus looked up from his notepad, pen poised like a weapon. "I've been tracking down the other victims." Agent Martinez mentioned the Colorado veteran. "He's willing to testify. So are the Wyoming family and 3 others we've located. This isn't just about Montana anymore. It's a federal conspiracy case." Agent Martinez nodded approvingly. "Which brings us to the operation itself. Jake, we need you to approach Brenda one more time wearing the wire. Get her talking about the tax sale, the forged documents, anything that demonstrates criminal intent." "What's my angle?" "Desperation." Cassandra suggested, the fluorescent lights reflecting off her glasses like inspiration striking. "Pretend you're broke. Losing your electrical license, willing to negotiate. Make her think she's won. Federal wire fraud requires proof of intent to deceive across state lines. Recording someone admitting to forging government documents provides that proof instantly. Never admit to crimes over the phone. Law enforcement can and will use recorded conversations in court." The plan crystallized like frost on a windshield. While I played the defeated victim, Sarah would continue photographing financial documents during HOA meetings. David would trace more money transfers. Marcus would interview additional victims. And Agent Martinez would coordinate with prosecutors in 4 states to build an airtight federal case. "But here's the beautiful part," I said, feeling puzzle pieces click into place with satisfying precision. "Brenda thinks she's got me cornered, which means she'll get cocky. Cocky criminals make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" Sarah asked. I pulled out my grandfather's original survey map, its edges yellow with age and wisdom. She's never actually seen the complete property boundaries. She thinks she stole 47 acres, but Grandpa's land extends another 15 acres past the development, including the hillside where she built her own house. Dead silence. Then Cassandra started laughing, a sound like champagne corks popping. "You mean Brenda's personal residence is also built on your property?" According to this 1923 survey, her McMansion sits dead center on mineral rights that are worth about $2.3 million in today's market. David's calculator was smoking by now. "Jake, if you can prove ownership of those mineral rights." "I don't just prove ownership. I prove she's been illegally extracting and selling gravel from my land to pave county roads. That's theft of natural resources, which carries automatic treble damages under Montana law. Mineral rights in Montana include surface materials like gravel, sand, and stone. Unauthorized extraction constitutes theft with damages calculated at 3 times market value plus attorney fees. Always verify mineral rights before purchasing rural property. They're often more valuable than the land itself. Agent Martinez was grinning like a shark who'd just smelled blood in the water. Mr. Mitchell, I think Brenda Kowalski is about to have the worst week of her criminal career. The wire felt like a metallic spider crawling under my shirt as I approached Brenda's house Monday morning, playing the role of a broken man ready to surrender. The smell of her automatic sprinkler system mixing with expensive fertilizer created an artificial paradise that would soon become her personal hell. I practiced my defeated posture in the mirror, shoulders slumped, voice cracking slightly, the body language of someone who'd run out of fight. Agent Martinez had coached me on key phrases that would trigger admissions. I can't afford to keep fighting. Maybe we can work something out. And the golden ticket. I just need to know how you pulled this off so perfectly. Brenda answered the door wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Well, well, look what the cat dragged in, ready to admit defeat, cowboy. Mrs. Kowalski, I said, letting my voice tremble just slightly. I think we need to talk. She invited me into her living room, a monument to nouveau riche excess, featuring gold-plated everything and furniture that screamed, I have money, but no taste. The morning sunlight streaming through oversized windows illuminated dust particles that danced like tiny witnesses to what was about to unfold. I'll be honest with you, I continued, settling into a chair that felt like sitting on a marshmallow made of leather. I'm broke. Lost 3 major contracts because of this legal mess. My attorney says I'm looking at years of litigation I can't afford. Brenda's eyes lit up like a predator sensing weakness. I tried to warn you, honey. David and Goliath stories only work in the Bible. That's just it. I'm not David anymore, I'm just tired. I rubbed my face with hands that genuinely shook from the adrenaline of playing this role. Maybe there's a way we can work something out. What kind of arrangement did you have in mind? Here's where I took the biggest risk of the entire operation. I need to understand how you did it. The tax sale, the development permits, all of it. If I'm going to walk away from my family's land, I need to know how completely I got outplayed. Brenda practically purred with satisfaction. Oh, Jake, it was almost too easy. She poured herself coffee from a machine that probably cost more than my truck, the rich aroma mixing with her triumph. See, most people don't understand how the system really works. What do you mean? County clerks are just civil servants making $35,000 a year. Show them the right incentive and suddenly paperwork can be flexible. She laughed, the sound echoing off marble countertops like coins dropping into a collection plate. My brother-in-law Dennis has been managing tax sales for 15 years. He knows which properties have elderly owners, which families are too poor to fight back, which parcels are worth developing. The recording device captured every word as Brenda detailed her criminal enterprise with the pride of a master craftsman explaining technique. We target inherited land because families are usually scattered, grieving, and clueless about property law. Dennis creates fake tax delinquency records, then processes a sale to one of our shell companies. By the time anyone notices, we've got buildings in the ground and residents paying monthly fees. But what about inspections? Building permits? Brenda's smile turned predatory. Jake, honey, you really don't understand how small-town politics work. The building inspector owes his job to county commissioners who owe their elections to developers who donate to their campaigns. Everyone gets their cut. Everyone stays quiet. She was confessioning so freely that I almost forgot to seem defeated. How many times have you done this? Whitefish Meadows is our 4th development. We've got projects planned in Utah and Colorado. Bigger properties, higher-end homes. This little operation has generated over $12 million in revenue over 5 years. But here's where Brenda's arrogance led to her biggest mistake yet. As she detailed her criminal network, she also revealed something Agent Martinez had been desperate to confirm. The location of the offshore accounts. The beauty of the Cayman Islands, she continued, is that they don't ask questions about deposits under $500,000. We just break up the transfers, launder them through legitimate HOA management companies, and voila, clean money. I leaned forward, playing the role of someone impressed despite himself. Brenda, I have to admit this is genius. But what happens when someone like me doesn't give up? Her expression darkened like storm clouds gathering over mountains. Usually they get tired and go away. But when they don't, she paused, sipping her coffee with deliberate slowness. Well, let's just say accidents happen. Electrical problems in small apartments, car troubles on mountain roads. People disappear all the time in Montana. The temperature in that room dropped 20 degrees as I realized Brenda Kowalski wasn't just a con artist. She was describing murder as casually as discussing the weather. The wire captured every threatening word as my blood turned toice water. Is that a threat, Mrs. Kowalski? That's just reality, cowboy. Sometimes people need to learn when to quit while they're still breathing. That afternoon, Agent Martinez played back Brenda's recorded threats in the FBI field office, her face grim as granite. The sound of Brenda casually discussing accidents and people who disappear filled the sterile room like toxic gas, making everyone present understand we weren't just dealing with fraud anymore. Mr. Mitchell, Agent Martinez said, clicking off the recording device. You just captured a confession to conspiracy, money laundering, bribery of public officials, and criminal threats. But more importantly, you may have recorded evidence of previous murders. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. You think she's killed people before? We're reopening 3 accidental deaths in counties where the Kowalski network operated. A property owner in Colorado who died in a suspicious houser. A Wyoming rancher whose truck went off a cliff the day before he was scheduled to meet with an attorney. An elderly woman in Idaho who suffered food poisoning after refusing to sell mineral rights. But before I could fully process that nightmare, my phone rang with news that made everything infinitely worse. Sarah Smith's voice was barely a whisper, tight with terror. Jake, they took David. What do you mean took him? 2 men came to our house this morning. They said David was being arrested for financial crimes related to his investigation of HOA funds. But Jake, they weren't real police. The metallic taste of adrenaline flooded my mouth. How do you know? Real officers would have shown warrants, read Miranda rights, allowed David to call an attorney. These men just handcuffed him and drove away in an unmarked van. When I called the sheriff's department, they had no record of any arrest. Agent Martinez was already on her radio, coordinating with local law enforcement while I tried to keep Sarah calm. The sound of sirens in the distance mixed with her quiet sobbing created a symphony of escalating crisis. Sarah, where are you now? Hiding in Emma's closet with my daughter. Jake, I'm scared. What if they come back? Within 30 minutes, federal agents had Sarah and Emma in protective custody, while a joint FBI sheriff's task force launched a manhunt for David Smith. But Brenda wasn't finished escalating. She was just getting started. That evening, Marcus Webb called with his voice shaking like autumn leaves. Jake, my newspaper office was firebombed tonight. Everything's gone. Computers, files, interview recordings, photographs. 20 years of journalism turned to ash. The smell of smoke still clung to his clothes when he met us at the FBI office. His face blackened with soot and determination. But here's the thing. I wasn't supposed to be there. The bomb went off at 8:00 p.m., exactly when I normally finish editing. Someone wanted me dead. Agent Martinez studied security camera footage that showed 2 figures in dark clothing placing incendiary devices around the Whitefish Gazette building. The grainy video captured their methodical approach. This wasn't vandalism. It was attempted murder disguised as property destruction. They're cleaning house, she concluded grimly, eliminating witnesses, destroying evidence, trying to scare everyone into silence. But Brenda's escalation reached peak insanity the next morning when I discovered what she'd done to my grandfather's grave. I'd driven to the family cemetery, a small plot on a hillside overlooking Thestolin land, to update Grandpa Henry on the fight for his property. What I found made my blood boil with volcanic intensity. Someone had dug up his grave. The headstone lay shattered like broken teeth, and the mahogany casket sat exposed in the Montana morning sun, its brass handles gleaming obscenely. Scattered around the desecrated plot were copies of property deeds, survey maps, and a handwritten note in Brenda's distinctive handwriting. Even the dead can't help you now. The sound that escaped my throat wasn't quite human. Part roar, part sob, part primal scream of rage that echoed off the surrounding mountains. This wasn't just criminal anymore. This was personal on a level that bypassed rational thought and went straight to the reptilian brain where justice and vengeance lived in the same neighborhood. I called Agent Martinez with hands that shook like earthquake aftershocks. She dug up my grandfather's grave. Jesus Christ, Jake. This is desecration of human remains, a federal crime when it's part of an ongoing conspiracy. But more importantly, it proves she's completely lost control. Desperate criminals make fatal mistakes. That afternoon, while crime scene technicians photographed the grave site and collected DNA evidence from the disturbed earth, I received an unexpected call from Chuck, the former security guard. "Jake, man, you need to know they got your friend David at the old mining camp up Glacier Road. But it ain't just Brenda anymore. There's at least 6 guys with military gear, and they're talking about making this whole problem disappear permanently." The stench of fear mixed with the lingering smoke from Marcus's destroyed office as Agent Martinez coordinated an emergency rescue operation. But she pulled me aside with news that changed everything. "Jake, we've identified the other members of Brenda's network. This isn't just about land fraud. They're part of a larger criminal organization that's been operating across the Mountain West for over a decade, and they've killed before." The Whitefish Community Center hadn't seen this much excitement since the Great Pieth incident of 2019. Agent Martinez had orchestrated a brilliant trap, a fake emergency town hall supposedly called by Brenda to address malicious rumors about Whitefish Meadows. The smell of burnt coffee mixed with nervous sweat as over 200 residents packed into folding chairs, unaware they were about to witness the downfall of a criminal empire. Brenda arrived fashionably late in her white Escalade, flanked by 2 men in cheap suits who looked like they'd learned intimidation from watching bad mob movies. She wore a powder blue blazer that screamed, "Trust me," and carried a briefcase that probably contained more lies than a political convention. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice echoing through the microphone with practiced authority, "we're here tonight to address the vicious attacks on our beautiful community by a disgruntled squatter who refuses to accept reality." That's when I stood up from the back row, wearing a wire that felt heavier than a nuclear reactor. "Evening, Brenda. Mind if I ask a few questions?" Her face went through more color changes than a traffic light having a seizure. "Security? Remove this man immediately," but her security had been quietly arrested 10 minutes earlier by FBI agents posing as janitors. Sometimes the best traps are the ones nobody sees coming. Agent Martinez rose from her seat in the 3rd row, badge gleaming under fluorescent lights like a beacon of justice. "Actually, Miss Kowalski, I think everyone here would benefit from some honest answers. I'm Special Agent Lisa Martinez, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The collective gasp from 200 residents sounded like air being sucked out of a vacuum chamber. Cell phones appeared like mushrooms after rain as people started recording what they sensed would be historic. "This is harassment," Brenda shrieked, but her voice cracked like thin ice under pressure. "I demand to see warrants." Agent Martinez smiled with the confidence of someone holding a royal flush. "Brenda Kowalski, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, bribery of public officials, desecration of human remains, and conspiracy to commit murder." But the real mic drop moment came when the community center doors opened and David Smith walked in, flanked by 2 federal marshals and looking like he'd survived a war zone. The sound of Sarah's sob of relief echoed through the suddenly silent room. "David." Sarah rushed from her seat, Emma toddling behind her like a tiny witness to justice. "I'm okay, baby," David said, embracing his family while the crowd watched in stunned silence. "But I've got some interesting stories to tell about Brenda's offshore bank accounts." That's when Marcus Webb stood up, his press credentials gleaming like armor. "Miss Kowalski, for the record, can you explain how you accumulated $12 million in assets on a county clerk's salary?" Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. That's private financial information." "Not anymore," Agent Martinez announced, producing a federal search warrant thick enough to use as a weapon. "Your accounts in the Cayman Islands were frozen this morning. So were your brother-in-law's assets, your shell companies in Delaware, and the 15 properties you fraudulently developed across 4 states. The crowd was riveted like spectators at the world's most satisfying tennis match, heads swiving between Brenda's meltdown and the FBI's systematic destruction of her criminal empire. But I had my own moment to save her. Standing up with my grandfather's original deed in hand, I addressed the room with a voice that carried 4 generations of Montana determination. "Folks, I want everyone here to know every single home in Whitefish Meadows was built on land that legally belongs to me. But I'm not here to destroy families or leave anyone homeless. The silence was so complete you could hear heartbeats. Tomorrow morning, I'll be filing paperwork to donate the entire 47 acres to the Whitefish Community Land Trust. Every family who bought a home in good faith will receive clear title for exactly what they paid. No more, no less. The only person losing anything tonight is the woman who stole it in the first place. The explosion of applause sounded like thunder rolling across mountains. But the sweetest sound came when Brenda finally cracked under the pressure of her collapsing world. "You can't prove anything!" she screamed, her composure dissolving like sugar in rain. "Yes, I took the money. Yes, I forged the documents. But everyone does it. The whole system is corrupt. Why shouldn't I get my share?" Agent Martinez clicked off her recording device with satisfaction that practically glowed. "Thank you, Miss Kowalski. That confession just saved taxpayers the cost of a lengthy trial." As federal agents led Brenda away in handcuffs, she turned back with eyes full of the kind of hatred that makes rattlesnakes look friendly. "This isn't over, Mitchell. You have no idea what you've started." My response echoed through the community center like a bell tolling for justice. "Brenda, it was over the day you messed with my grandfather's grave. Some things are more important than money, like family, truth, and making sure bullies learn there are consequences." 6 months later, I stood on the front porch of my new cabin, built on the original foundation where Grandpa Henry's house once stood. Watching the sunrise paint the Glacier National Park peaks in shades of gold that no amount of money could buy, the smell of fresh-cut pine mixed with morning. Coffee created the kind of peace that only comes after a storm has finally passed. The Whitefish Meadows. Community Land Trust had become a model for affordable housing across Montana. Every family kept their homes at cost with monthly payments going toward community improvements instead of some criminal's offshore account. Sarah Smith had been elected the first president of the Legitimate Homeowners Association, and David's accounting skills ensured every penny was tracked with military precision. But the real satisfaction came from watching justice unfold like a perfectly planned electrical circuit. Brenda Kowalski received 25 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. Her brother-in-law, Dennis, got 20 years for corruption and falsifying government documents. The network's other members were scattered across federal facilities from Colorado to Washington. Their criminal empire dismantled piece by piece like a house built on stolen foundations. The FBI recovered over $18 million in stolen assets, which were distributed to victims across 4 states. The Vietnam veteran in Colorado got his ranch back, along with enough compensation to cover the years of illegal development. The Wyoming family received triple damages for their stolen farmland. The Idaho couple's mineral rights were restored, with interest that set them up for retirement. Agent Martinez received a commendation for breaking up what prosecutors called the largest rural land fraud conspiracy in western United States history. Marcus Webb's newspaper, rebuilt with insurance money and community donations, won a Pulitzer nomination for investigative journalism. His series, The Land. Thieves became required reading in journalism schools across the country. Chuck, the former security guard, testified against Brenda in exchange for immunity, and now works as head of security for the Community Land Trust, protecting families instead of threatening them. Sometimes redemption comes in unexpected packages. As for my electrical business, word of mouth from the Whitefish Meadows story brought more contracts than I could handle. Turns out people appreciate an electrician who knows how to rewire more than just buildings. Someone who can untangle corruption and restore power to communities that need it most. The Land Trust established the Henry Mitchell Memorial Scholarship for rural students pursuing trades education. Every year, 10 young people receive full funding for electrical, plumbing, or carpentry training. Skills that build communities instead of tearing them down. Grandpa would have loved knowing his stolen land became a foundation for honest work and honest futures. Sarah Smith started a consulting business helping other communities identify and report HOA fraud. Her motto: "If the books don't balance, neither does the leadership." She's already helped expose 3 other criminal networks and saved dozens of families from financial ruin. The old mining camp where David was held became a wilderness education center for at-risk youth. Sometimes the places where evil operates become foundations for good, a kind of cosmic justice that feels right in the Montana mountains. But perhaps the sweetest ending came when I finally had Grandpa Henry properly rearied in a new cemetery overlooking the community that now thrived on his land. The headstone reads Henry Mitchell. He believed land should serve families, not criminals. Every summer, the Community Land Trust hosts the Henry Mitchell Festival, 3 days of music, food, and celebration that draws visitors from across the region. Local artisans sell handmade goods, families share stories around campfires, and kids learn traditional Montana skills like fly fishing and wilderness navigation. The festival generates enough revenue to maintain the scholarship fund and support other community projects. Standing here now, watching my neighbors tend gardens and children play in yards that were once built on lies, I understand what Grandpa meant about land being worth more than gold. He was right, but only when it's held by people who understand that real wealth comes from community, not conquest. Here's my challenge to everyone watching. If you've got an HOA horror story, whether it's financial fraud, abuse of power, or just petty tyranny, share it in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late. And if this kind of justice-served content speaks to you, hit that subscribe button because there are more Brendas out there, more communities under attack, and more stories that need telling. Sometimes the best revenge is simply making sure the truth gets heard. Thanks for watching HOA Stories. If this episode made you laugh or shake your head at HOA madness, hit that like button and drop your opinion below. We post HOA Karen chaos and neighborhood showdowns every week. So be sure to subscribe to catch the next unbelievable story.